In this video, we're going to look at the concept of the properties toolbar. These are the general properties of the software. This is where you set your color, your layer, your line styles, and your line weights. And it's also where you set your grid or can select grid options. By selecting any one of these icons, you will invoke another menu. And this menu, let's try the color one, for instance. This menu here allows you to select your colors. It would allow then, once you're in here, to change each of these colors. So for instance, if I wanted to change color 11, I would select it and choose the change button. And then I would choose which color I wanted that to be. That's the current color. This is the new color I'm choosing it to be. And I'm going to apply that and select OK. And now you can see that this is the new color. And these are called color palettes. And the color palette can be saved, and you can also load a previously saved color palette. We'll look more closely at this in another video. You'll also notice at the top of this dialog box of the general properties that whilst we have selected the color tab because we clicked on the color icon, had I clicked on the layer icon, it would have immediately opened this same dialog box but with the layer tab open. With all of these functions, you have the ability to switch objects colors or weights or colors, styles or entity types on or off to make them either selectable or not selectable, visible or not visible. And with layers, we can also lock a layer so that whilst it's capable of being selected and it's visible, you cannot edit it or delete it in any way, shape or form. So this general properties dialogs is something that you will use not only to preset the layer, weight, color, and style that you're about to draw with or insert objects on, but also to make changes to those objects if you select them and then want to change them to a new layer or have them be a new weight or a new color or style than they currently are. With all of these, you can, as I mentioned before, switch things on or off. So for instance, if I wanted to switch off all the cabinetry, I would simply click this icon here and click OK. And all the cabinet lines have been removed, leaving me with other layers switched on. In the same way, I could go to colors and I could switch colors off. I could say, I want to switch this green off, for instance, and you will see on the left here, when I click OK, that will disappear. That wasn't the right color. Let's double click on it. It's actually color 1. So let's revisit that option, color, switch off color 1 and go OK. So it's not the actual color, it's the color number that is important. Line styles can also be used. So for instance, we move this over here. I could switch off this dashed line style here by switching this one off. OK to that. And everything drawn in that line style has been switched off. How do you switch them all on again? Well, you can either invoke this and switch it on here. Go to weights, they're all on. Colors. If I click the visibility, they're all off and they're all on. So clicking at the top will switch them off or on. You can also drag to switch them off, or you can be individual about which ones are on and which ones are off. Okay. Now everything's back on. Didn't do this one. If you wish, you can right click on an object and simply hit unhide all, and it will switch on all layers, all colors, all line styles, and all line weights that have previously been switched off. Here we have the ability to switch on or off the display of line thickness. So you'll notice in this drawing we have different line thicknesses. And if I uncheck this option, all lines are now drawn at the thinnest line your screen is capable of displaying. When you tick the option, lines with a variable thickness or lines with a thickness greater than 0 will show up slightly thicker. Let's look at a line that is drawn at 2.5, and I'll draw a line at 2.5. When you click this option, you'll see that it's actually drawn on screen as a single line of the smallest possible thickness. Here is where you can actually group the line thickness, the line weight, the line style, the layer, and the color into a named set, which you then select from here. So these are named sets, and you can see the house, when you choose it, comes up as blue. It's a 0.5 line. It's drawn with a line style of 0, drawn on layer 2. If I choose a different item, such as glass, you can see again, this is layer 9, still line style 0, color number 6, and so on. And these are all preset through the style set options. This is where you choose which color, layer, style, and weight you wish to group together and name. So you can actually simply hit the add button here. So if I change this from a color 6 to say color 2 and select OK, and then I hit add, it will update what glass actually is in terms of this grouping under the set name. So now you'll see the color down here as being blue. This option allows you to clone the settings of any entity that's already drawn. If I select this and I click on this line here, you will see it has made the current settings the same as this line. So it's red and it's color 14, it's layer dimensions, line style 0, and line thickness 2.5. If I use the same tool and I click on the dimensions or a dimension, you'll notice it's now layer dimensions, color 0, a 0.18 line thickness, and you can see this is what it's going to look like should I start to draw an object now. Over here is where we switch grid settings on or off, and also where we can actually create new grids or new grid names, and those grids can be selected using this here. Currently, we're operating under a 5mm grid, which when you're zoomed out a long way disappears, but as we zoom in, you will see the grid will eventually appear. There it is. And each one of these small squares is a value of 5mm. If we open the grid box or the grid dialog box, you can see the X and the Y values of 5, the reference grid of 10, so that's the slightly heavier line, and currently the grid has no angle because you can rotate the grid to an angle if you wish. We are also snapping to those grid points or to those grid lines, and we are displaying them when we zoom in. These are other options about the grid that you can utilize, and you can also switch from displaying as lines to displaying as dots. So if I zoom in now, you'll see that we've got the default grid system, which is just a series of dots. Some people prefer that. They feel that it's an easier way to see their line work without being disturbed by other lines.